I'll tell you, as a favorite memory, there are just so many to tell you, but I'll tell you one story. And BK was a young man, married. His wife was nearly full-term pregnant. They lived about 3 hours away from us, and that is walk. And he was, there's never enough food for the animals in the wintertime. And so everybody's climbing trees and cutting down leaves and bringing them home. Well, he misjudged the strength of a branch and fell from the tree onto the terrace below and broke his back. And his wife found him and shouted for people to come. They carried him home, but, he couldn't move his legs. He couldn't pass urine. He was getting all bloated. And so the next morning they brought him in the worst possible kind of ambulance of a hammock slung under a pole, and brought him to People Hospital. And so, it's hard for you to believe this, or anybody to believe this in Canada, but I had treated a number of these people before and tried extremely hard to get them set up so they could look after themselves at home and their families could care for them. But what happened is they all got bed sores. They didn't bring them back. They all got infected and died of infected wounds. And that broke my heart. And so we kept this young man in for 1 year. Now, that was extraordinary because we were a busy hospital, acute hospital. But anyway, we kept him in for a year. And so when he got over the acute part of it, anyway, his wife had her baby at home, and when she brought him, and he was, as I said, quite a bit better, we had a wooden orthopedic frame over him, and so she would tie the baby onto the frame, and he could rock the baby while she was cooking the rice. We asked for one relative to always stay and look after the food, and if there's nobody, that's desperate, and if there's 10, that's also desperate. But if there's one responsible relative, that's wonderful. And anyway, so when he was able, he began. He'd had schooling, but I'm not quite sure how far. He didn't have his high school, I don't believe. But anyway, so he read everything we had, and some of it was about agriculture or health, but most of it was Christian literature, and he read all that. And then we had tape players, and with lots of tapes, and some would be a reading of scriptures, some would be a drama, some would be music, and anyway, largely through these tapes, we also had, rechargeable batteries, and we had a man that could fix broken tape players. He was one of the other doctors. He used to work on into the night fixing these things. But anyway, and at the end of a year, he was sent into Kathmandu. That was a very, very, very difficult time for him of adjustment. But a wonderful thing happened, and that was that there were a couple of ladies, I think from Holland, who knew how to make batik. You've seen a few around here. There are a couple out there on the wall, and and they taught BK and his wife to make batik. And so this is how he made his living for quite some time. But he wonderfully, God arranged for another American businessman who was there, with a 5-year visa, which is unheard of, but business people can get the visas. And he was a keen Christian, and he discipled and taught this young man. And so he became a pastor. And when I went to visit, I went back to visit a couple of times, and once I was there on this Saturday when they would have their main Christian meeting. And he had started this meeting by this time he had a home of his own, and others had helped him build that. And across the dirt road was another bigger place, and so he arranged to have a room there where he could have a service for other disabled people. And when I was there, I was absolutely, so deeply moved, really. I mean, at least 7 people in wheelchairs, and some, a blind man, and somebody who had healed leprosy but was crippled, and someone with old age and troubles, and so on. And one little man who used his arms to use his wheelchair because his legs were small and useless from birth. And so he sat on the floor with the tabla tied around him. Tabla is a kind of a Nepali drum. And so we sang, and we sang, and we sang, and the tabla went, and it was so wonderful. And so it was just very wonderful. And that gradually grew and grew until now there are a considerable number who are coming. They moved to another building that used to be some kind of a factory for the church. And it's quite remarkable what that little church is doing.